All right. All right, everyone. We'll start our workshop tonight, and I'd like to start our workshop with Travis Gordon to give us an update on different projects going on and where we are at with those. So, Travis, take it away, please.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, trustees, for having me. I'd like to start with where we're at with the current project, the streetscape project. It's looking like the state has reviewed the drawings and everything that's needed for the finalization of that project. Like the second part of it to be completed. I know there's been a bit of a delay on that with the seeker and things like that, but that's looking like that we're getting past that at this point, and I believe Scott Marsh and DPW is going to be kind of leading the construction administration on that to some degree, or at least lending a hand on that to finish up that project. So that's definitely a good thing, something we're excited about. What I wanted to discuss with you all today was primarily about the potential projects that we're looking at seeking funding for. So we've been kind of working behind the scenes with the engineer that's on retainer with the village, Patriot Engineering, and with a few other folks, and trying to determine what types of projects are priorities for the village. Of course, we've been speaking to trustees as well, but really getting a engineer's perspective on what are the infrastructure projects that are the biggest needs in the village at this time. I know the engineering firm Patriot Engineering did put out a draft village projects list in the first week of last month, where they kind of go over the projects that they saw based on speaking to various department heads as like the biggest priorities at this point in time. Those projects were from the water treatment plant to DPW to the wastewater treatment plant, and they included things like the slope, the spillway, the dam, backwash pumps, things like that. Some of the infrastructure within the village, and also the some of the infrastructure at the water treatment plant, like the settling tank, the aeration headers, the grit classifiers, that sort of thing. So they put together a pretty good list of the needs there, and we started kind of using that and working with them to determine to kind of match that with various funding sources that we're seeking to apply for here. Primarily, we're looking at things like the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund and getting the drinking water projects on that list. They have their method of doing that, or having communities do that, is to submit listing forms to add the projects to their intended use plan. This would help the village apply for WIA funds, which I know that there's quite a bit of money available for water infrastructure through WIA. The state has announced like a pretty much unprecedented budget for WIA this year, so we definitely want to get in on that. So we're working with them to put together some of these intended use plan listing forms for those projects. I'm not sure if you all had a chance to take a look at that document that Patriot Engineering put together, but they did list projects like the backwash pumps and the dam and spillway as high priority. And then they had things like the 24-inch clear well and the slope and the water treatment plant facility improvements and the sludge well cleanouts as medium priorities, and then the parking lot and road as low priorities. But we believe that we should be able to get some of these listed, especially the backwash pumps and the dam and spillway, due to their kind of high hazard classifications. So we're working with them on that. We're also looking at the Clean Water State Revolving Fund for the wastewater treatment plant projects, for which they have the control building boiler and the grit classifier listed as high priorities. I believe you'll be speaking about that boiler tonight. But And so those were high priorities. They had the aeration header and the settling tank as medium and low priorities, respectively. So we were looking at the Clean Water State Revolving Fund as a potential source for that. That also needs to be in a system online, the EFC Plus system. Like it's the state's. They have their own review system for reviewing those specific projects and things like that. But we also need to be on their intended use plan, and we need to get on that before the middle of June of this year to be eligible for those funds for next year. So we're working on that. We also, for the water treatment plant, we're potentially looking at funds through the consolidated funding application. The state has in the past funded projects at water treatment plants for through the what's it called, the Water Quality Improvement Project Program, and that funds things like up to $1 million of funding for various improvements for wastewater treatment plants and things like that. So, like I said, we're kind of matching these projects with potential funding sources that we're working under the assumption at this point that there will be funding. We're not exactly sure how much funding will be available for those projects in the year 2022, but we're using the project manual from the previous year to identify state consolidated funding application funding sources, and kind of working to get some applications prepared for when the 2022 grant application list is released, which should be imminent. It should be, typically New York State releases their consolidated funding application in mid-May. So sometime around mid-May, we'll be getting the 2022 list of grants and priorities that they're looking to achieve. And we'll definitely have a better idea in terms of like what amount of money we're going to be able to apply for, what types of projects the state has as priorities, and things like that. But in the meantime, we have a pretty good sense that they are going to be funding some of these programs. So we want to start preparing things like engineering reports, project maps, budget worksheets, municipal resolutions, letters of support, things like that, so that when this funding portal opens in mid-May, we'll be able to jump in there and start getting some applications put together in a timely manner, so that we're not playing catch-up this time. So that's definitely one of the big priorities this year. Other projects that we're looking at for the 2022 grant application round through the consolidated funding application would be resubmitting the community development block grant infrastructure application that we submitted last year, and that was for water main replacements on Madison and Chestnut, also some sidewalks and possibly some drainage in those areas. Those projects were also listed in Patriot Engineering's assessment of the village's priority projects, and they recommended adding some engineering assessments or a little bit more to that in order to make that a more competitive application. And we're going to be working on that with them this time around. We're also potentially looking at the previous year, 2021, the state had a relatively small amount of money available for public facilities through the community development block grant. And so if they have that again this year, we're going to be looking at that as a funding resource for potentially either the wastewater treatment plant or the water treatment plant improvements that are definitely needed here. Any questions so far? I know I'm throwing a lot at you here.
Yeah. Travis, has the county given you any assistance, or do you need any assistance from the county? Because I know, speaking to Nate and Mark, that they are offering, and even the county executive, any assistance for projects moving forward and anything that we're doing.
We've been communicating with Nate and Mark. They're aware of these priority projects that we are looking to potentially apply for. We haven't divvied up the list of grant applications and things like that yet because we haven't actually received the final list from New York State talking about what projects they're looking to fund and what programs they're looking to fund this year. So that may be happening, but we haven't gotten to that point yet. But like I said, we're actively communicating with them, and we will be probably seeking letters of support at the very least from the county for these projects. Moving right along, we spoke to the Parks and Rec department in Fredonia about the potential projects that they're interested in, and with the village this year wrapping up the Environmental Protection Fund grant application for Barker Common, we've been the funding source, which is the DEC, has New York State Parks. They have recommended that the village attempts to apply for funding for additional projects because now that the village has a successful track record of finishing these projects, the state, it kind of gives the village a leg up on future projects. Like, they know that we can do the projects from start to finish and, finish it in a way that, like, the state's happy with. That is definitely something that makes the village competitive here. So we're looking at potentially doing some projects in Russell Joy Park with that as well. We still need to kind of flesh out those projects, possibly things like sensory trails, things like that. But we're going to have to develop some budgets and things, but just wanted to put that on your radar that is a funding source that it's been suggested that we reapply for that. That was about $300,000 that was awarded to the village previously. It's likely that they will be funding another round of that, and we will likely want to look into shovel-ready projects in the village in places like Russell Joy Park to apply for another round of that. So that is, at this point in time, that's kind of the list that we are working with for developing projects within the village for the current funding rounds. We've got the consolidated funding application and the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, which have deadlines this summer. And we'll have the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund and the WIA, which have funding rounds usually in the fall. Any questions so far?
The Russell Joy projects moving forward. The Russell Joy Park is a park that's co-owned between the Village of Fredonia and the town of Pomfret. Would it make any sense to coordinate any efforts with the town of Pomfret in conjunction with them to possibly have us have more of an advantage of getting grants working with another municipality?
I would think so, yes, absolutely. And I wanted to open it up to the trustees. I know that we've been kind of speaking about projects throughout the village. I wanted to ask you if you have any other priorities that we should try to add to our list while we're still in the pre-crazy grant application phase. We have a couple weeks until we actually know everything about what's going to be happening. But are there any projects, any park improvements, any kind of infrastructure projects that we should put on our radar at this time?
How about chairs for the Opera House? I know that was a project that was supposed to be funded last year and it didn't happen. And speaking with Rick, he's hopeful that this year the money might become available.
That's correct. Yeah, we have been working with Rick on kind of a pre-application on that as well. We put together some language that we're hoping we can use in this consolidated funding application. As right now, we're not entirely sure which grant would be the best match for that, but certainly that is on our radar. Yeah.
Travis, we had talked about possible repairs that need to be made to the Barker Library / historical museum over there, some of the pillars and outside of the buildings and stuff. Is there any money available for city buildings, repairs for those?
Yeah, I think, I'll have to check. So I thought is that owned by the village?
Yes.
It is owned by the village, okay. Barker Library. Yeah, there may be funding out there for, library improvements and things like that. I'll have to kind of dig through my list and see if there might be a good funding for that. I think I spoke to one of the trustees about possibly other sources of funding for that, like historic tax credits, which they do get complicated when you have a building that's not on the tax rolls as it is. But obviously, that's a historic building, and it would, whatever improvements have to be made to it will have to be done in a historic manner.
It would be the museum, actually. It's 200 years old, that building, so that's what we're looking at, yeah. Mhm. Thank you, Dave, for bringing that up.
Any other, and you all know you can email me if you have any projects that come to mind. But we're always open to hearing about those and working to match them with a good potential funding source.
Is there any money and funds available for a rails to trails system through the village?
Are you talking about the old trail that goes next to what was Red Wing?
Behind Red
Old
Wing,
rail,
yeah.
I should say.
Yes. Yeah.
I think there may be. Yeah, that's a very interesting project, or that would be an interesting project. I know the county has done a lot and has received funding recently for planning for trail systems and things. So that may be something that we'll reach out to the county and ask them if they would want to look into the feasibility of making that a rail trail, like having from Dunkirk to Fredonia or vice versa, trail on what was that railroad spur there. We'll look into that.
Travis, I know this is a infrastructure project that wasn't listed under the priority projects from Patriot Engineering, but it's one that's near and dear to my heart that I've been passionate about since the beginning, is the second interconnect with the city of Dunkirk. Now, I know that this interconnect would benefit Fredonia, it would benefit Dunkirk in emergency situations, it would also benefit the North County Water District because the North County Water District is supplied by the city of Dunkirk. Might this be a project that we might or think of considering the county take on as a infrastructure project because it's a multi-jurisdictional project that would benefit, all these municipalities and entities, and North County Water District would be a county project, or it's a county project, I guess, right now. So what are your thoughts on that?
I will say that the report that Patriot Engineering did is not exhaustive. I think they might even mention that somewhere in there, but if not, they mentioned to me that they can analyze everything ad nauseum forever, so they don't have a exhaustive list of everything that is needed or wanted in the village at this time. However, they developed that list based on conversations with department heads and visual inspections of what was on the ground there. But I believe that if we move forward with this, we would be able to ask them or another firm, but since we have them on retainer, we can ask them to put that, add that to that list and make a recommendation, put together a engineering report, possibly discussing the benefits and the challenges associated with it, like what it would cost, what the village would need to do in order to make that a successful addition to the water infrastructure. But it certainly is something that can be done, and I agree. If this is something that we can get county involvement in, between this and the rail trail, that's another good example of something that the county may be able and willing to help out with. So I will bring this up with them as well.
thinking it actually involves another municipality, the town of Pomfret, that we provide water to, and the University of Fredonia. That's a big customer as well. So there's 3 municipalities, a university that would be, and a North County water district on top of that. So it's interesting that it would combine all these entities, and that might be something that might be on their radar, so that might be taken off of our radar and expenses possibly.
Right. I think the reason why we didn't look at using CDBG for that is because the Madison/Chestnut Street project, like they had a limit in the budget for $1 million, and that's where we wanted to put that before. But again, we'll look at that in the 2022 funding round to see what their budget limitations are for villages to apply for that money. But we can certainly add that to the drinking water state revolving fund project list in terms of priority projects. That definitely should be on there, or at least discussed. Because like you said, yes, a variety of municipalities impacted by that.
What about if our population went down below 10,000 to utilize USDA funding grant opportunities as well?
Absolutely. That is definitely something that, because that funding can be used for infrastructure improvements. It can also be used for equipment purchases. So we're going to be checking with USDA to see if or when they're going to be using the new 2020 census total population count number to show that the village needs to be under 10,000 residents. As it stands with the 2020 census, the village is at like 9,600 residents, so we're just below 10,000. So we would be eligible to apply for that funding through there. We're going to reconnect with our contacts there and see if they are using that data yet. They weren't recently, so they weren't sure when they were going to be switching over, but we're going to reconnect with them and see when, if they're now switched over to 2022. They should be, but stuff's taking time.
Yeah, one other project there was a new tower ladder truck that could be
Right.
part of that. So, thank you.
Another project that we are working on in the village right now, and several of the trustees have been involved in this, including as recently as today, we are restarting some of the complete streets conversation and some of the conversation relating to the Route 20 traffic calming and traffic improvements within the village. As you may know, DOT is looking to potentially make some major changes to Route 20 or make changes. It's on their schedule for several years from now. So we've been asked to put together a letter kind of highlighting why the state should prioritize some of the changes in traffic calming measures that we recommend in the village. And so we're compiling a letter kind of asking for the moon, really asking for a lot of traffic calming measures that the state has the ability to make changes to on Route 20, like changing the speed limit is bare minimum, but also things like adding center medians, adding other traffic calming measures that would increase safety and also increase Fredonia's visibility, as people are racing through town, slowing cars down for people to be able to notice that there is a beautiful community. It's something that we definitely want to get across to the state. So we're currently compiling a letter that we're going to have the chief of police have a letter as well, and also DPW is going to be having a letter that we're going to be sending over to the state, kind of highlighting the needs that need to be accomplished and addressed, because this is usually like a once-in-a-decade opportunity to get some changes made on our main street. DOT doesn't often revisit these questions, maybe once a decade. So several of the trustees have been involved in those conversations, and we're going to be working in the next few weeks here compiling a letter that will kind of detail the wants and needs of the village in that regard.
Sounds good. Are there any questions or anything for Travis? Anything at all? Travis, thank you very much for the update. There's a lot of good projects, a lot of good things happening here in the village moving forward, and I appreciate all your assistance. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks. Good night.
All right.
Okay, we'll move on to resolutions. First one is the closing of Village Hall on August 26, 2022. That's Friday during the Farm Festival, correct? Any comments or any questions? Next one is the Fredonia Italian Heritage Festival. Any comments or any questions?
I guess the only comment I had was in this letter, they said they want to put yard signs around the village, and they know they can't put them in the park, right? If they've been just.
That would be a Chuck question.
I actually left that out of the resolution because we just discussed it last
Okay.
meeting
All right.
about signs in the park. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Number 3, the amended seeker resolution. Any comments or questions on that?
That was done because Joy Kubler and Kim Clavoon saw the one we passed and thought that had some ideas about what they wanted it to say, so I included that in this meeting. And they're in there, it's in your packet to compare the two. I'm pretty much, they say the same thing, I think.
Did our attorneys look over their suggestions?
I believe it was forwarded to Charlie, but I'm not sure. Charlie, did you see hers? I thought she forwarded it to him.
I saw various emails on it. I haven't been asked to look over anything
Oh.
specifically.
Are you is the board comfortable passing that resolution tonight, or would you want to wait until our attorney looks it over?
I didn't see that the changes were that impactful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
small changes.
Okay.
I think we're fine to move forward.
Everybody okay with that? Okay. I see we have a resolution in our packet for a dog control officer.
Walk
Any-
on.
Walk-on resolution. Any comments or questions on that?
I'll sponsor.
I'm sorry? Okay. We also have another possible possible walk-on resolutions, one for the boiler project and grit classifier that were given to you right in the beginning that we discussed in previous meetings. Is there any more comments or questions?
It is something he needs to get done, so, please, Sean.
I'm assuming that you had a chance to look over all three of the,
Proposals?
you know, the proposals that we got, and you're really comfortable with this company, and,
And I also forwarded all three proposals to Patriot Engineering,
okay, good.
so Rex looked them over.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, he had some question on one of them, but I had to go back and ask the contractor 10 questions to clarify to make sure they met all, everybody was kind of even on what we needed done there. And everything worked out, so.
I'm glad we're using them, I mean. They are the engineer of record, and they should be utilized.
Absolutely, and he's very knowledgeable with the history of our village, of all our infrastructure, so he's knowledgeable, so thank you, Sean.
I'll sponsor that.
Okay.
So that's just the boiler project.
Okay.
That's a different project altogether.
Yes. Yeah, we don't have a resolution.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, we do have a walk-on resolution for that. Yep. Yep.
For which one?
Just the boiler.
Yeah, I just have boiler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. This,
Clarify.
this
Oh, not for the
third
grit.
one is a different, this is for Siemens.
Oh, Siemens, yeah.
Great questions. Okay. Are you saying we don't have this should just be for the boiler project and not the grit classifier?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay,
Right.
fine. And there should be one more walk-on resolution from Siemens. Alyssa, if you would like to explain that a little bit more, please.
financial services contract previously, and our attorney had reviewed it and wrote up a resolution to get this to move forward, because we kind of have to lock in a rate before we are not doing well with the rate. So he did put in there to not allow it to go through if we're not going to either break even or be ahead.
April 29th?
We've been contacting back and forth
And
with.
you're okay with this then?
Yes.
Being
Yep.
doing it today, okay.
Are there any other resolutions that I'm unaware of that I haven't brought up that we need to discuss?
That was for $1,950,000,
Yes.
not to exceed. Okay, I'm sorry. I just wanted to clarify that.
No problem.
I'm sorry?
I said I can sponsor that one.
Oh, yeah,
She can second it.
Oh,
yeah, I'll read it and you can second it, is that all right? Yeah.
Are there any other resolutions? Then we'll move on to the new business portion. We discussed the boiler project currently, so we'll move on from that. The CDBG CARES Act Business Assistant Pre-Application. Any comments, any questions on that?
I guess the only question I had was, the requested amount was, $250,000, was that the max for that?
I would believe so, yes. I wish Travis was still here, but I believe that's the max for them.
Maybe he went.
The last one. I'm guessing yes, John, that's probably the max on that.
That, I was thinking that was probably the answer, but I thought I'd ask.
Are there any other, let's see, dog control officer? We already stated that one. Is there any other new business? Anybody?
We've had this discussion before by a couple people regarding the, they live up on Chestnut Street, and they've had a lot of, damage done by, deer, and they wondered if the village or the DEC has any kind of plan to thin the growing herd. I mean, right across the street from us on Forest Place, you could see 10 or 20 of them running through the woods through there. Yeah.
It's kind of a slippery slope. I mean, there's probably various ways of probably reducing them. Guns and arrows are not permitted in the village. So those two are out.
Yep.
They're natural predators, the coyotes and cars. Cars take care of some, but there's not a lot of coyotes. You don't want to introduce coyotes into the village. I'm not sure about putting out poisons for them, whether you might poison other. So there's really not a very simple solution, and I think, DEC is probably aware of it, but I just don't know. I guess we could contact them and find out if there's, if they have any more thoughts, but I think if they would have anything that made sense to be able to handle that. And it is a problem, and the deer are very tamed. They unfortunately, in the wintertime, I know, as far as my house, they like certain bushes, and they will destroy and eat everything that they can get their teeth onto. So it is a major problem.
Yeah.
I just, Chief, we can't authorize people.
Crowd behind my house, I must have a couple dozen living behind me. There's really not much you can do.
Yeah, because of different things, you can't discharge weapons or arrows in the village, I believe.
By law, we can't.
And, I don't think anybody wants to release coyotes into the village, because I think it's a bigger problem than the deer themselves, so.
Coyotes are here though.
yeah,
They are in the village.
I hear them in my
I hear
backyard
'em.
all the time.
Me too.
Granted, I'm on the outskirts. but-
Yeah.
But obviously, they're not enough to control the deer population, and
Yeah.
probably amount you would need would be,
It cycles every decade, it seems. It takes care of itself, but a nice cold winter, or, you're right, natural prey. and then it seems to relax for a while, and then they repopulate, but we've had a few warm winters, and we survive well. Might
have to ask our town of Pomfret residents to maybe put out corn or food and draw them outside to the town.
Yeah.
It's solving our problem, but yes, I've heard also from a number of residents throughout the last few years, and I wish I could offer a solution, and the DEC, I think, has been contacted in the past, and I don't know if there really is a really good solution. Tackle them, I don't know. I don't know.
I don't think so. Get on that one.
But if there are some residents out there that have some actual plausible ideas to control our deer population, please let us know. Is there anything else new?
The only other thing I have is I've been working with the town. I was contemplating, not for this year, but for next year, a veteran tax exemption that exists within the county, but not for the village residents. So it would impact their village taxes. But before I would do that, I wanted to see what kind of impact that would have on the rest of the community, because they would make up for whatever the exemption was. So I got a list from the town today. I'm gonna work with Alyssa to try to go over the numbers and see what kind of impact that might have.
Yes, Trustee Bashaw.
Brett, trustee, the past administration, the past trustees brought it up.
Listen, have you worked on that in the past, and no? Okay.
I know that it was discussed, though, in a meeting, and it was, I recall, it was, at that time was determined that we weren't going to do it, but, and it was, I'm sure it had to do with that, whatever impact. But
I think, based on the list I got today, it would probably impact fewer than 150 residents, but I still think that it's a show of support for the vets that we do have in the community. And
Yeah, if you want to look into it and
Yeah.
come back with a report. I don't think we ever had a report previous to this to let us know exactly what the financial impact
not from
would be.
Alyssa, we didn't know.
No, so that's, I think that makes sense to at least get that information, and you can make an educated decision based
Yeah.
on that. Sounds good, John, thanks. And yes, we do appreciate and acknowledge our veterans, both past and present, who have, in some cases, gave their life for our country, so.
Yep.
Thank you. We'll go to old business. Backwash pumps update quote. Comments, questions, anything?
still working on getting an updated quote from the initial company that provided one, and she spoke with them today, and
Yeah, you know, the supply chains have really affected it, so they're looking at different suppliers to get some of the parts so we can get them quicker before they give me an updated quote on prices.
That seems to be the problem of the day for everybody and everything. Thank you. Is there any other old business?
Mark Levy today regarding the piano placement project, and I know that you had gone to the college and participated, and he was very, very thankful and appreciative that you were there. But I did want to bring up a location that we had kind of discussed, and maybe at the next meeting we could approve that, and because he wants to get that scheduled as soon as possible. So the location I was looking at is if you're standing on Church Street facing south, facing the gazebo, it would be just to the left of the gazebo, still on the brick, but close enough to the lawn where they could drive a stake in it in case anybody decides they want to steal a piano, would keep the piano in place. And we kind of batted that location around and kind of came to the conclusion that that would be the place to put it.
Are they going to need to put a cover / structure over this thing? It's just a.
That's all up to them.
They'll have a
Yeah.
cover over it, but let me
Yeah.
ask you
It'll
this.
have cover, but I think it's a soft cover.
Yeah, between Dave and
Kayla?
Kayla, oh my gosh.
Hi, Kayla.
Would there, yeah, what about the option to put it in the gazebo? Would that take up too much room
It
for?
wouldn't work with the bands and stuff that are in
Would
there.
it take too much room?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Kayla. I developed this.
So if the other trustees, agree that that would be a good place to put it, then I would like to get that on the agenda for next meeting. Yeah.
What about on the back of the, information, booth that's already on the other side of the park?
You know, we kind of thought that this position, if someone was playing it, then there's the gazebo there and there's places to sit around there, so if someone wanted to go play in, yeah, it just seems, yeah.
Yeah, there's also a door on the back of that booth that you gotta be able to access.
Pavers behind there, that's grass right
Yeah.
directly behind it, so,
Yeah.
so you would wanna.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good spot, cause it's solid for it to sit on and then
Yeah.
have a place to have a steak. I like it.
I can tell you the performers that performed that night were phenomenal, and if people play to that caliber downtown, you're gonna have a complete, that whole side of Barker Commons will be full of people listening, because it's
Yeah, that, I think
seems like a
that's
good
the.
project.
I'll even come down and sing.
No.
Oh, no, thank you. You know, we can't
How
afford
if
your
I
fee.
propose a motion that Dave never sings again?
I'll second that.
Only happy birthday.
Thank you, John.
Yep.
Is there any other old business?
Yeah, Doug, you and I spoke about the supplemental insurance
Yes.
question, and I guess, and it seems like we had the discussion before, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm
No, apparently you
misremembering.
did, and there's just so many things we did,
Yeah.
and that's fine, I understand.
Yeah, okay, but I guess I just wanted to say that, that the employees now have the option of picking up Geico as the supplemental insurance, and my thought was, if there's something, that the new company offered that Geico didn't, then maybe that would be worthwhile. You know, then I think there'd be feasibility to let them offer that. I just don't know if there is, and I would, I was speaking with him tomorrow, and I'll ask.
Okay, well, I do have the information that he presented to
okay.
me, that I could forward, I kinda wanted to sit down with yourself and trustee Byrd and our personnel specialist and review that.
Yeah.
If you're interested in doing that, we could, or I could just give you that information, I can forward it to you, and you guys could look it over.
Yeah, and, yeah, why don't you
decide.
forward that to Michelle, because she would be more aware of what Geico does offer, and then she could kind of do a comparison.
Okay,
So,
yeah, that's,
Okay.
Over everything.
after the meeting tonight, if you just stop by my office real quick, I have a copy of the presentation that was presented to me, and I will give our personnel specialist that
That
copy
works.
as well.
Great.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any other old business? Quiet on this side, no old business? Anything? Okay, going once, going twice. All right, well, that's all for our workshop, unless anybody has anything else for the good of the order. Well, we have a few minutes left before our meeting is scheduled.
You want to talk about the RFPs now, this portion of the meeting? For the engineering?
For the, for the water.
Yeah.
Okay, we
Okay.
could still do that. Okay,
Okay.
we still have, we have 15 minutes, almost
Okay.
15 minutes, so absolutely.
Okay, because I know that Anne Marie provided us, everybody with 3 copies, and Labella was updating their proposal, so, you know, I wouldn't want to make any decisions until Labella gets back to us. But one thing I was considering was, once we get their updated proposal, to send them to our engineer of record and let him review them, and because, like you said, he's familiar with the infrastructure of Fredonia, and I think he would be able to give us a more educated opinion than us reading through them, who are non-engineers, trying to decipher them. So I would like to recommend that we do that.
Yeah, I like that idea.
I'd also like to recommend that each one of those people come in and present to us what they want to do.
You know, I
just
guess
feel
I
it's
might
important.
recommend, I might go along with that if we had any questions about what it is. They
Right.
were, you know, and in which case we could submit a question.
Right.
But I would rather that we sent them off to the engineer of record and get his professional opinion.
So you don't want them to come in and talk to us?
And also Allison, I mean, should be familiar with what has been done and what's required for this report that needs to be done for the state.
Yeah, I've read all of the proposals and LaBelle's current one, I mean, we haven't gotten the new one. But- And I also compared them to the 2012 assessment as well.
Right, and that's what I was doing too, had those here. There was also a statement from 2016 from O'Brien and Gear that referred to back to the 2012, but there was also questions of whether, how much of things that were done since then, like is the mathematic survey, is that required for that, for the state filing, or is that something that we did afterwards? Because apparently we did that in 2016, 2017.
The bathymetric survey was part of the 2012 engineering assessment, but I don't think it needs to be done again.
That's what I was wondering, because some of these included those costs.
Yeah, I don't believe it
And-
needs to be done again.
And,
The
whereas,
soil doesn't really change.
right, so because of the one proposal was significantly higher than the others, but it included some of these things that may not need to be on there.
I also did the calculations, you know, they said in there if it was done, that would save costs. It was still significantly more expensive than the other two,
That would-
taking out the bathymetric survey.
Right,
and
so
the-
that one was still significantly more, that's what that's what I determined too. So, I felt that at this point, Labella seemed to have everything covered that we needed. I don't know if in your opinion, if that is true.
Yeah, I liked, cause they also included updating our ERP, which hasn't been done. I mean,
Right,
it's been updated, changing names and everything, but, you know,
right, whereas the one lower priced one, didn't do that.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. I agree.
So, of the three, that appears to be the best choice at this point.
You say we will be getting updated?
Yeah,
Version.
because they didn't get, a map that we had found after, so Ann sent them,
I sent them an addendum.
yes.
And he's gonna be in touch, he was supposed to get in touch with me today, but didn't, so I would give him till the morning.
Did the other two
Yes. yeah,
companies
yeah.
have to get too? Okay.
So that,
And I talked to them at the conference I went to. I met with one of their engineers, and they seemed really nice, so.
so it may or may not make a difference in the cost.
It may or may not make a difference, right?
Okay. But you did that to make sure that they all had the same information?
Exactly.
So it looks like there's at least one that would be, they're all qualified, definitely all qualified. They have good backgrounds, but the one seems to fit our need at a price range that would be doable.
Yeah, I agree. But I definitely think John's right that Rex maybe could look over them, give us his opinion.
And they did have a timeline in there that was within our needs too, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they were all somewhere around
Which
October,
I-
November, I
I'm
think,
a- Try to keep people to their timelines if we can, because it's very important, especially when you have state
Yeah.
requirements involved.
Yes.
Well, I'm sure these companies, engineering firms have accounted for hopefully COVID delays and so forth, and that might be, included in the time frame of their, whereas the previous projects that we had, they were pre-COVID, and they had no idea that there was gonna be massive COVID delays of different things, so that's where we ran into problem previously. Okay, anything else anybody wants to discuss? We have about 6 more minutes before the meeting. has everybody had received, new board members, the assessment, their water assessment from O'Brien and Gear, that study that we had in 2016? And then the recommendations, there was two different things. I think there was the water study, and there was two parts to that I have. I think one,
which is more expensive than the repairs.
and actually, myself and Trustee Twitchell attended a North County Water District meeting here about a little over a week ago. And they had a professor from the college, Dr. Ronaldo or Ronaldi. Ronald, I'm sorry, Ronald, I apologize. And he was trying to go over the different calculations and stuff for the water district and what the city of Dunkirk was charging them. And we did speak briefly on what our thoughts were moving forward into the water district. And one of my concerns was that when we have a water loss and non-billable water supply of 50%, it would make no sense whatsoever to have a master meter hooked up to somebody and be paying for every ounce. Although by economies of scale, we would obviously help the water district based on, we have probably more customers in the Village of Fredonia than the water district has totally combined right now. So that would definitely help the water district out. But when wouldn't help us at all when we have to make up 50% of the loss in our water customers' things. So
Another thing to think about with that is, we still have the dam, be responsible for that. And not having the revenue that you would have from the water, it might be more difficult to repair that or take it down. I mean, it's a lot of money.
Well, it is.
That was all represented in the presentation, that when we decided not to go and be
Yep.
involved, but there was significant costs.
Yeah, the time frame that I believe it was bonding, to be able to bond for the decommissioning was far less and would be more costly than it would be to bond over a longer period of time if we do the repairs and make the upgrades to the water treatment plant and the reservoir and the spillway. That was the assessment there from O'Brien and Gear at the time, and that's why the board, which I was on at the time, we made the decision not to enter into that at that moment. Allison, the roof repair, is that moving forward?
The roof is fixed where it leaks, and they came back last week. I had to go to Mayville, so I'm not sure when it was snowing if they got to actually look at it, but with the rest of the under 5,000 that was left, they were gonna look at over the reactor and clarifier roof where we have some soft trouble spots. He's gonna take a look at that.
Super.
So. But the leaky roof is fixed. We have no more leaks. It's all patched. We're all whole
Good.
again.
I mean, these may be little steps here, there are base hits, but these base hits are adding up, and our facilities are being upgraded and repaired to provide our residents with the facilities and the things that we need to have, so.
Scott planted some trees in the last couple of days, right?
Yeah, last week we planted 15 trees. 5 in the park and 10 around the village, just where I try to plant them where we cut them down,
Is it dogwoods that we have downtown? Does that sound right?
I didn't plant any dogwoods.
Oh, the ones that are blossomed out right now.
Those are
Ornamental pears.
Flowering pears?
Bradford pears, probably.
Wow, they look phenomenal
Yeah,
right
they
now
look
driving
nice.
through town. Thank
The
you.
magnolia downtown looks really nice, too. The one at the White Inn.
Awesome. Well, when Trustee Lindy gets back, we'll start the meeting. Jackson, if you're still set.
Mayor, this is Charlie. Do you need me to stay on for the meeting?
Does the board have any need? No, Charlie, I think they're all set. Thank you very much for attending the workshop. Appreciate it.
Sure, have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Mayor, may I ask if the department heads, if you need them to stay or not?
If there's no need for any more questions, department heads, does the board have any objections to department heads leaving? Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Hey, look, you hear that?
What was that?
Do you have anything to bring up? Stay if you have anything, if you don't have anything.
I don't.
How are we doing on the hiring of?
Scheduling interviews now, that's what I'm going to go do, call some more people.
Did we get enough interviews?
Yeah. Lifeguards might be a little, that's why, I'm planning to hire for the May 16th meeting, so we can lock them in.
Okay.
We had 6 lifeguards.
Okay.
So, trying to push through this week with interviews and that.
We still need to sit down just to go over the variance and what
So
we need to
next week, I'm thinking.
do. Okay.
Text me when you have availability.
Okay, we had probably any night other than Tuesday after 6 o'clock, so
Sean?
Any night,
after 6. other
but
than-
not Tuesday. Okay. Sounds good.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Michelle, I'll text you on that. I'll text you on that too. for the
Yeah.
meeting.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I'd like to call to order this meeting on May 2nd, 2022 at 7:30 PM. Roll call of trustees. Trustee Linden.
Here.
Trustee Twitchell. Trustee Byrd. Trustee Syracuse. Trustee Esperson. Yep, would please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of the minutes, please.
Whereas members of this board have read the official minutes of the Board of Trustees regular meeting of April 18th, 2022. Now therefore be it resolved that the board hereby approves the minutes as entered into the official minutes, and be it further resolved that the reading of the minutes be dispensed with.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Twitchell.
Aye.
Trustee Byrd.
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse.
Aye.
Trustee Esperson.
Aye.
Carried. Public portion, please.
Comment. Any member of the public wishing to speak, once recognized, shall stand at the microphone and state their name and address. Speakers will be allowed 3 minutes if speaking for themselves or 5 minutes if speaking on behalf of a group. I will ask the speakers to refrain from remarks that are in poor taste, slanderous, or not germane to any action taken or contemplated by the board.
Is there anyone here that would like to address the board? Please step up to the microphone. Yep. Yes, sir.
Is it even on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. It's
my
mostly
name-
on for the TV and
Okay.
people at
My
home.
name
yeah.
is Derek Christodoro. I live on Eagle Street. Emailed the mayor and the trustees and other members of the village photographs of the damage that was done at 103, 101, 103 Eagle Street. And I was here 2 weeks ago and spoke on that damage. I included in that email not only photographs, but also the code that outlines the policies and practices regarding trees in the village. That's chapter 273. Have trustee members and the mayor, have you guys had a chance to read this? Yeah, okay. So, one of the questions I have is, if you may not have the advantage I have in having this code in front of you, but section 273.9 says exceptions to tree removal permit, and in section A says cutting down or killing or otherwise destroying trees by the owner of any tract of land no larger than 1 acre, improved and being used for residential purposes. And this is an exception, okay? In the event that a tract of land is being used for residential purposes and is larger than 1 acre, this exception shall only apply to a 1 acre area immediately surrounding and measured equally around the residential unit. So I'm wondering if the damage that I showed in the photographs falls within that exception or it doesn't fall within that exception, because it's a little bit vague. Can anyone care to clarify that?
Chuck's not here. I believe that parcel of property is above 1 acre of land, though.
But it might not be zoned residential. I don't know if they changed the zoning or not.
Well, it's set to become lofts. Right. Okay, so residential versus commercial.
Correct.
Oh, the lofts would be commercial then.
Well, because of the original, what that building was, it wasn't always residential. So
Okay.
I don't know if they've had that rezoned, if
Okay.
they, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
In some commercial zones, you're allowed to have residential, but it can still be
Correct.
considered,
And still-
be considered
yes.
a commercial zone.
I believe it's a multi-use zone in that area.
So I don't know. But these are, questions for
Chuck,
Chuck.
these are
I mean,
questions for
we could
Chuck.
sit here and gas all night long. I don't want to do
Okay,
that.
he's not
for you.
here. Okay,
But he's
and
not
I
here.
also wanted to briefly read section 273-11, penalties for offenses. Every violation by any person, firm, association, or corporation of any of the provisions of this chapter shall be deemed to be an offense against this chapter, and upon conviction thereof, such person, firm, association, or corporation shall be subject to a fine of not more than $250 for each and every offense, and a civil penalty for the removal or destruction of any tree on private property or street or park tree equal to its value not to exceed $2,500 per tree. So I would like some action done on made on this, and I think they need to be fined. There needs to be a penalty assessed for the destruction of these trees.
The issue's gonna be in what we have to prove, or what somebody would have to prove, is whether those trees were sick, detrimental, any risk of falling or whatever on, anything, whether they had a disease or whatnot.
Right.
And now that the trees are down and gone, I'm not sure how that you prove any of that, and quite frankly, without having the evidence of, why they cut them down, I don't know how we would act upon that.
Well, it's not evidence of why they cut them down. It would just be their claims as to why they felt it was warranted to cut them down.
Well, if they claim that the trees were a hazard and would fall on the property or diseased, there's nothing there that we can go and.
Well, the pictures I sent clearly showed that at least 5 of those 7 trees were not diseased.
Well,
By looking at the stumps,
I
it's
have
clear
a
to see.
degree in horticulture. I can cut down a tree that has a perfectly good stump and has major disease in the branches. And I can show you that at my house, for example, with various different trees.
I think we might be getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah,
Actually, this isn't,
let's
let's not, where
Yeah,
this
it's
isn't
just-
for.
I mean, we don't have anything that, other than some photographs of stumps that say what the problem with those trees or why they were cut down.
Well, the gentlemen who cut down the trees, they're not horticulturalists either. And I very much doubt the fact that they made some kind of informed evaluation of the health of these trees before they cut them down. Okay? They're no more qualified to make that decision than anybody who just pick off the streets. So the fact that we have in this code stipulated penalties for offenses, okay, then it seems to me action is called for.
I believe we're gonna have our code enforcement investigate it before any action's taken. Usually that's what usually happens in anything here, so before any more statements of whether the trees were good or not, the code needs to be, the law and our code needs to be reviewed by our code enforcement. If he wants to determine if he needs a tree expert to come out there and investigate to see if those trees were properly cut down or not, that's a process we need to do. But as far as having somebody prosecuted and fined right at this moment, I think it's a little premature.
Well, sure, I'm not, asking at this moment,
I
but
would also caution you about going onto their property and taking photos and, videos and whatnot of what happened over there without the owner's permission. I mean, you've got to go through the appropriate channels.
well, I walked over there. And if I want to take more pictures, I'll walk over there and do it again. You know? What's that?
I don't know if he doesn't have any trespassing signs.
Well, okay,
We're going way beyond.
Yeah, we're going way beyond it.
And I
We
just
will look
wonder out
into-
of what concern that you would caution me against that.
Well, you're walking onto somebody's property, you don't know if he has a dog, if he
Yeah,
has a
but you're
whatever
not,
there.
you're not, there's no dogs there. I'm a neighbor. You're not a law enforcement officer.
I'm just telling you my concerns.
Okay, well, I'm
and this-
telling you my concerns.
Okay, we're getting way beyond
That's
the
fine.
public portion,
fine.
area of how we're supposed to handle public portion.
You're
We will
allowed to
take,
film
we will
it.
take your, we will take your comments and your concerns to the proper department and have them investigate that further. I know he's aware of it. If the whole board or one of the board members would like to discuss this further with Chuck to see where he's at with that and to make sure that he knows the residents' concerns even more, we'll go there, but it
And
was.
finally, I'd like to add, when I did very calmly and politely, respectfully, address the gentleman whose crew was responsible for taking down those trees and told him I wasn't happy about it, calmly, he said he didn't care how I felt and I should get the hell off the property. Okay? So.
Thank you.
I'll be here 2 weeks from now to see what kind of follow-up there is, okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, sir. Anyone else would like to address the board?
I just have, did you forward those pictures and stuff on to the code enforcement officer?
I did.
Okay,
Also to Mr. Marsh.
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Seeing as those are, okay, okay, yep, okay, thank
Good afternoon. My name is Tom Carl, and I am a Fredonia resident, and I'm running as an unaffiliated candidate for the United States Congress. I'm writing this letter to the Village of Fredonia Village Clerk, Anne Marie Johnston, in regards to my request for the use of the Village Park on the gazebo side for 3 hours, 4 to 7 p.m. on Thursday, May 12th, and Friday, May 20th. As backup dates, Friday, May 13th and Thursday, May 19th would also be acceptable. The use of the park would be for political campaign functions such as speeches, petition signings, coordination of volunteers, and meeting the public. Depending on the size of the gathering, we can consider the use of a small public address system if that's permitted. The timeline for the campaign petitioning effectively ends May 23rd, so this will be the one request that I make. Thank you for the consideration. Regards, Mr. Carl. Want to discuss it, or you want me to read the next one?
Issue with them holding an event as long as they don't violate any of our local ordinances.
Okay.
Is anyone else using the gazebo at that time?
Not those dates.
Those dates?
And
I know we're supposed to be apolitical, but
We are.
Yeah.
it's been used for those purposes in the
It has.
past,
Mhm.
so,
we're allowing anybody to petition and use it, so we're not,
yeah.
it could be whatever party, it's not.
It would, you'd have to give equal, is that what you're saying?
Right.
Equal,
We'd,
okay.
we'd give equal as well,
Yeah.
yes.
I think just as long as he's not interpreting this as a village endorsement.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Right.
this isn't
Right.
us supporting his campaign, this is just us
Right.
letting him use
Okay.
that gazebo.
Yep.
And just to clear the dates too.
And I have to clear the dates, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Dear Mayor Essick, thank you to you and the trustees for giving us permission to use the park on June 4th for our annual Bach barbecue, bake sale, and basket auction. We very recently learned that the Fredonia First Methodist Church with literacy volunteers will be holding a barbecue, bake sale, and yard sale on the very same day at the very same time on the church's front lawn. It does not make sense to have two such events happening at the same time in essentially the same location. So we are requesting approval to hold our event in the park instead on Saturday, September 17th. We're requesting use of the West Barker Common and gazebo from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. In addition, to accommodate the safe setup of the barbecue trailer, we plan for it to occupy the first 2 parking spaces closest to Temple Street on the north side of Church Street in front of the Family Church for the duration of the event. Please let me know at your earliest convenience if the village can grant this request or if you need additional information. Thank you for your consideration of this matter. Sincerely, Rick Davis.
They're saying that it was.
It's on the same exact day, the church and literacy volunteers are having a same exact thing, barbecue, bake sale, yeah. Yes.
And we've approved the churches? Or that we
No,
don't have because it's on their property?
it's on their property.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
But he just wants to.
He just wants to do
move
it
a
later
different-
on.
A
in the-
different date.
Yeah,
because of
September
that, even
17th.
though-
So
Okay.
would we amend that, would we pass another resolution?
Just-
for- Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah, just amend his. Yes.
thank you. That's all I have.
Yeah, we'll close the public portion. Correspondence, please.
Correspondence dated April 6th was received from the staff of the Fredonia Village Hall requesting to close Village Hall on Friday, August 26th, 2022.
Be resolved, the Village Hall offices will be closed on August 26th, 2022, the Friday of Farm Festival, and that each village employee will use a personal or vacation day.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Twitchell.
Aye.
Trustee Byrd.
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse.
Aye.
Trustee Esperson.
Aye.
Carried.
Correspondence dated March 29th, 2022 was received from Linda Liedke, co-chairperson of the Fredonia Italian Heritage Festival, requesting the use of various village properties during the Fredonia Italian Heritage Festival, Saturday, June 25th, 2022, from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Be it resolved that the request for the Fredonia Italian Heritage Festival asking for the use of various village properties during the festival on Saturday, June 25th, 2022. Festival will take place at the Fredonia Beaver Club is hereby approved. Be it further resolved that the following requests are hereby approved. Use of several garbage containers to be located on the perimeter of and on the Beaver Club premises. Use of village safety cones and barricades. This will assist with traffic control. Use of the village police sign at the corner of Main Street, Route 20, and Prospect Street a week prior to the event in an effort to increase safety at the intersection and direct people to the event.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Twitchell.
Aye.
Trustee Byrd.
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse.
Aye.
Trustee Esperson.
Aye.
Carried. Move on to reports. Sorry, one second here. Get my report on my phone. So I have a few items to report tonight. First, I attended the reception to kick off the Fredonia Street piano project last week. The project will be connecting our communities by placing the student-painted pianos in our communities. SUNY Fredonia will receive one of the pianos, as will the city of Dunkirk and our village. We will need to determine the exact spot, which we have already, that the trustees will decide. Each piano was highlighted, as was the artist who painted them, and each was played at the reception. Congratulations to all involved in this project, and I am excited to see the Central Connections project off to a great start. Earth Day 2022 was April 22nd. I want to thank Darwin Barker Library for leading our community in another community trash pickup day that day. Last Friday, I attended the annual Boys and Girls Club Banquet. This year's theme was You Can Make a Difference. Making a difference in even one child is making a significant difference altogether. The event collected donations primarily for upcoming summer camps for area children. It was a very nice event. Saturday evening, I had the honor of swearing in all the Fredonia Fire Police officers at their annual banquet. Fredonia Fire Police firefighter Chuck Orlano was awarded the Past President's Award during a banquet that was held at the Fredonia Beaver Club. A big thank you goes out to each person who donates their time and skills to volunteer to help our community. The efforts are very much appreciated. Thanks to all who are a part of the Fredonia Fire Police. And that is all I have to report tonight. Trustee Linden. Okay, thank you. Trustee Twitchell.
Yes, I also wanted to thank the library for deciding to have a pick up the trash day. It was very successful. I agree with you, Mayor.
Yes, very much. Thank you. Trustee Byrd.
Nothing new tonight.
Thank you. Trustee Syracuse.
I just wanted to bring up the complete streets work that Travis Gordon had mentioned. Trustee Twitchell and myself have been meeting with Travis and Susan Parker from the county just to kind of discuss how we can coordinate efforts and make our streets a little more walkable and and safer. And one of the things that we're really focusing on right now is getting Main Street safer for our pedestrians. So we're working together, and we'll be having a letter drafted, and I think Susan Parker and Travis will be presenting the board as a whole once we have that together and our ideas formalized.
Thank you, Susan, for your spearheading a lot of these different efforts. Thank you. Trustee Esperson. Happy birthday, happy birthday, by the way.
Thank
Just
you.
want to let everybody know it's his birthday today.
Feels so special. Trustee Twitchell and I, along with you, Mayor, were able to attend the Fire Department Executive Board meeting last week. And one of the concerns that we had discussed previously was the additional cancer coverage for members that initially weren't eligible, but now the fire department feels they are eligible. I know that Alyssa's working on that, but it's something that we need to keep kind of in the front of our minds, because we need to make some kind of determination, because we will have to fund that depending on who is and is not eligible. So we need to keep that in mind. That, and tomorrow's our second cannabis board meeting. So
Where's that being held?
that is being held in the trustees room downstairs.
And you already have a full committee, so everybody knows about it.
That is correct.
How did your wine and meeting go?
It went very well. There were about 12 of us, and we had interesting conversation. I was very thankful that Scott Marsh was there, because he answered many questions that I would have been stumbling to try to speak intelligently about. So I was very thankful that he joined me that day.
Awesome. That's, okay, thank you. Alyssa? Ann, do you have anything? Okay. Additional reports? Then we will move right on to resolutions, please.
Whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Fredonia, the board, has considered the impacts of the environment to complete the proposed action, the Village of Fredonia Downtown Placemaking Project, which includes Main Street, Temple Street, Park Place, Church Street, and Day Street in Fredonia, New York, 14063. And whereas the board has reviewed the proposed action with respect to the unlisted action criteria set forth in Title VI NYCR Part 61, or 617.5, now therefore be it resolved by the board as follows. The proposed action does not exceed thresholds established under Title VI NYCRR Part 617.5 of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SEQR. The board was required to complete a coordinated review of the Town of Pomfret, Town Board, Chautauqua County, Empire State Development, New York State DOT, SHPO, and then New York State DEC. The coordinated review was complete, and the board responded to all comments reviewed from the above-mentioned groups with no objections. The board hereby determines the proposed action as an unlisted action in accordance with the SEQR regulations. No further review of the proposed action is required under SEQR. The resolution shall be effective immediately. Be it further resolved that the mayor is hereby authorized to sign the SEQR form on behalf of the board.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Twitchell.
Aye.
Trustee Byrd.
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse.
Aye.
Trustee Esperson.
Aye.
Carried.
Whereas the village requires removal and installation of a new boiler for the wastewater treatment plant, and whereas Chautauqua Mechanical 2 LLC, Falconer, New York, has offered an RTS/28HE-6 43 horsepower HB Smith cast iron sectional boiler as well as a replacement of pumps and lines and the removal of the old boiler for $91,000. And whereas this boiler work is suitable for the village's purpose, therefore be it resolved that the village board hereby authorizes Chautauqua Mechanical to complete boiler project for $91,000.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Twitchell.
Aye.
Trustee Byrd.
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse.
Aye.
Trustee Esperson.
Aye.
Carried.
Whereas the village has undertaken a project to save energy costs through the purchase and upgrading of the streetlights currently owned by Niagara Mohawk, and other energy-saving measures to be performed by Siemens Industry, Inc. of 85 North Point Parkway, Suite 8, Amherst, New York. And whereas the village and Niagara Mohawk have executed an agreement for purchase and sale of streetlights, and said agreement has recently been approved by the New York State Department of Public Service, and whereas the village has determined that it is in the village's best interest to enter into a performance contracting agreement, the energy contract, with Siemens Industry Incorporated relating to the acquisition and installation of certain equipment, the equipment, and whereas the village desires to finance such acquisition and installation of the equipment under a leasing schedule, the lease, which incorporates the terms and conditions of the master lease purchase agreement, the agreement between the village and Siemens Public Incorporated as lessor, including the execution and delivery of related escrow agreement, tax agreement, and related documentation collectively, the transaction documents, and whereas the form of the transaction documents for financing has been reviewed and approved by the village board, providing that the terms of this lease be set forth in the financial service proposal, and the final interest rate would be determined just prior to closing therefore. Be it resolved, the mayor is hereby authorized and directed to execute the financial service proposal and the transaction documents with Siemens Public Incorporated to close the transaction, provided that the final interest rate results in a budget neutral or budget positive projection.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Twitchell.
Aye.
Trustee Byrd.
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse.
Aye.
Trustee Esperson.
Aye.
Carried.
Whereas the village requires the services of a dog control officer as defined by New York Agricultural and Markets Law, Section 1086. And whereas John Paul Long has the knowledge required to perform and provide the services of dog control officer services and is ready, willing, and able to provide such services on an independent contractor basis in a provisional manner. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the independent contractor agreement, dog control services between the Village of Fredonia and John Paul Long dated May 1st, 2022, at a billable monthly rate of $333.33 is hereby approved. And be it further resolved that Mayor Essick is hereby authorized to execute the agreement on behalf of the Village of Fredonia.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Twitchell.
Aye.
Trustee Byrd.
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse.
Aye.
Trustee Esperson.
Aye.
Carried. I believe that's it for the resolutions. Can I have a motion then? We need to enter into executive session to discuss employment of a past employee. Does that sound?
Potential employment of a past employee and also, I guess, potential disciplinary action of a current employee.
Okay, that's.
Motion.
So there's been a motion and a second.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to enter into executive session. Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Twitchell.
Aye.
Trustee Byrd.
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse.
Aye.
Trustee Esperson.
Aye.
Carried. Our next meeting of the Village of Fredonia workshop and board meeting will take place on May 16th, 2022 at 6:30 PM in the trustees room, second floor, Village Hall. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jackson, for filling in.